This is Honor and Pride, our newest pattern featuring the Bandana collection from Banyan Batiks. And these are the fabrics we're going to be using. We have the white swirls for the background with all of the gray and dark colors and values over here. I wanted something really bright and crisp to pop those colors off of. You can see that as they lay on here. We're going to be using the stamps and the swirls for the center of our blocks. We're going to use the navy floral, the red stars, and this light gray seal fabric for our star points. And then for our inner border, we're using this nice, quiet, tonal blue. And for the outer border, it's going to be the fun and exciting batik stars. So this is going to be a really fun project. There's only one block in the quilt. We just do it in 2 different colorways. I'm going to show you how to put this together using a triangle and a square block and some flip and sew. And we're going to go ahead and get this cut, and then we'll be ready to get started with our blocks. Alright, so we're getting ready to start cutting this project. I pulled out all my little Alphabitties labels. We sell these on our website. They're little plastic tiles that have the alphabet and numbers on each tile. I used a hole punch and punched a hole in it. It has a safety pin, and I can pin it to the top of my stack of pieces so that when I'm ready to start piecing, I know which fabric is A, B, C, D, all the way down. So we've got those ready. And we're going to go ahead and we're just going to start cutting. I'm going to show you how to cut the template pieces using the 2 peaks in 1 ruler. This is a ruler from Creative Grids, but that is the only funky cutting on this, so the rest of it's just straight cutting. So when we get to this part, I will show you how we use it. So for fabric B, we're going to need to cut 24 template 1s and 24 template 3s, and those templates are in our pattern. They're right there. And we do have listed here, optional to use Creative Grids 2 peaks in 1 ruler or Tri-Rex ruler set. This is the 2 peaks in 1 ruler. And how you know what size strips you need is you take the ruler and you lay it on the template. And you align the dotted line. And you know what? I didn't print these to fit to scale. So here's a side note. When you print a pattern, which if you do a download, make sure that when you measure this, it is exactly 1 inch. Mine is like a 30 seconds of an inch off, just a little, but it's enough to have these templates off. So I'm going to go reprint these, come back and show you how to use the ruler. All right, so now I've gone and I've printed this actual size. And this is a mistake that we get calls on a lot of times, is if you do a download pattern and you print the pattern and you do fit to page or shrink to fit to page, when you go to measure that 1 inch box, it is only a very little bit off, but it is enough to mess up these templates. So actual size, when you lay a 1 inch ruler on it, it is exactly 1 inch, and that is what it should be. So I just thought I would use this, my mistake, as a teaching thing for you. I don't know if we lay it on here, you can't really see it, but you want to make sure anytime you print your patterns, if there is a scale issue, to double check if they give you a box to measure, which all of our patterns do have. So now that I know that is the correct page of templates, I'm going to use my 2 peaks in 1 ruler, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to lay it on the shape, and I'm going to put the dotted line on the dotted line and the solid line on the edge of the ruler, and this is actually going to be finished size 3 3/4. So I need to cut my strips at 4 1/4. And I know that because it's the line between the 4 and the 4 1/2. So 3 3/4 is our finish. 4 1/4 is the size strip I'm going to cut. And then instead of cutting paper templates, I'm going to go ahead and use this ruler for this side. And I'm going to use this ruler for the upper 2 templates. For there, and then you would flip the fabric over, not the ruler, but that would be for the other side. So now we don't have to worry about using these templates. We're just going to use this, and like I said, we're going to use our 3 3/4 line. And to make sure I remember where my line is, I'm going to take a little flag and I'm going to put it at the 3 3/4 line so I know it's there. The other thing you can do is you can take a let me find them. we sell grip strips, and grip strips are bumpers that you put on the back of your ruler to keep it from sliding. But what I do is I cut these grip strips into smaller pieces, and I can lay the grip strip onto the back of my ruler on the line where I need it to meet. And that means when I lay this ruler on the fabric, it'll butt up against that bumper, and then I won't need this. It will stop right where I need it to be. And I'm going to do the same thing on this side. And then once you're done with the bumper, you can just peel it off the back, stick it on the front until the next time you need it. But this is a way to make sure that when you have to cut a lot of pieces, they're accurate. Or in this case, I'm going to mark where I want to cut it because it's not labeled with a number. And I know that is the shape I need. And I'm going to double check it on the paper just one more time before I cut them all and have them wrong, and that is correct. And see, that one is not correct. I did not do that on purpose, but hey, my mistake. You get to see what you do to fix it. So there we go. So we got the bumper on that one. Let's double check it again, and we are right on the line. And that's just, you know, always double check yourself before you cut your fabric. It's expensive. You don't want to just cut it up and find out you did it wrong. And these again were grip strips. I'm going to put the link below. We do have those on our website. They come in long strips, and then I just cut them into 2-inch segments. All right, so I now know I need to cut my strip to cut these shapes out of at 4 1/4. So I'm going to cut 4 1/4 inch strips, and then go ahead and cut my triangles. And for the blue, it's the smaller side. And then you take your strip, and I like to put the strips right sides together. In this case, it's a batik, so there really isn't a right or a wrong. But I like to keep it wrong sides together, just the way I cut it. Let's get rid of our salvage. And then I'm going to take this side of the ruler, align my bumper with the bottom, the sticky bumper I put on there, the edge with this side and the edge with that side, and then I'm going to cut. And what that gives me is it gives me a template 1 and a template 3. So that is because I have 2 layers of fabric and they're wrong sides together. You could do 2 layers of fabric right sides together, but this way I'm cutting one of each every time. So I need to make 24 cuts because I need 24 template 1s and 24 template 3s. So I'm going to cut this strip up to find out how many I get out of a strip, and then I will cut however many strips I need to get to my 24. The other thing that you have to do, which will make lining these so much easier later, is there is a line on the ruler that says baseline. You take the baseline on the side pieces, which are these guys, not this one, and you align that baseline with the bottom of the triangles, and you align the side of the ruler with the side of the triangle. So baseline is here, side is here, and you take off this little notch of fabric. It'll give you a notch in your piece that we're going to use to align them later. So just make sure that you do that step as well. Sometimes I'll cut them all and then go through and notch them. Sometimes I notch them as I go. But that notch is really important to help you align it. So again, baseline right here. Put the bottom of the triangle on the baseline, the side of the triangle with the ruler. Take care of that notch. Okay? So I'm going to just keep going and get these all cut. Alright, so we have 24 unit 1s, 24 unit 3s, and that's what we needed for fabric B. So then we'll label it, and then I'm gonna go ahead and cut the next round of them, and then I'll show you when we get to D how we cut the unit 2s. Alright, so now we're gonna cut our template 2s, and we need 48 out of this. I've already gone ahead and cut 24, but I have 2 strips here, 4 1/4, just like the other ones. And then I'm using this side of the ruler, and I'm aligning it with the 4 1/4 line. And the first one you have to cut both sides. You do not need to take a notch out of the bottom, so that is it. So in the pattern, we do show you how to do half square triangles the traditional way. and that's right here. But I want to show you another way to cut and sew half square triangles that I like to use. It's just as accurate. It feels like it's a little faster because you don't have to cut your triangles in half. But I'm using the Creative Grids non-slip multi-size 6-inch Flying Geese and 45 90-degree triangle ruler, or we endearingly now call it the Pac-Man ruler. So what I do is our half square triangles are going to be red and white. So half of it will be red, half will be white. So I took these strips over to the ironing board, I put them right sides together, and I pressed them. By pressing the strips together, they kind of grip and stick together a little better, and they won't slide on you as much. That's just an optional step, but that's what I do. And then I'm using the 45-degree side of the ruler, which it says right there, 45, and I lay it on my strips, and I cut them to get my triangles. Now, normally to cut for half square triangles, your finished size, you would add 7/8 to them. So for this pattern, you would have cut a 4 5/8 inch strip. To use the ruler though, you don't need to add a 7/8. You only need to add your 1/2 inch seam allowance. So these finish at 3 3/4. Our 1/2 inch is 4 1/4. So we're going to go ahead and align the ruler with the top of the strip set, side of the strip set, and the 1/4 inch line on the bottom of the strip set. And I'm going to go ahead and cut. And I've got 2 stacks sitting here. So what that means is I have, this is ready to sew, because it's right sides together, it's been cut together, so there's one, and then I have 4 strips sitting here. You can cut 2 at a time, 4 at a time, 6 at a time, whatever you like, but by pairing them up, I don't then have to rematch them. They're already matched up and ready to sew. And then we're just gonna take this into our sewing machine and cut our 1/4 inch, I'm gonna put this in our sewing machine and just sew a 1/4 inch seam, and I will show you that when we get there. But in the meantime, I have to cut 48 of these. So another trick that I use is I'll take a larger square ruler and I will stack these up as if it's like a serving tray, and then I'll take the whole ruler over to the sewing machine and go ahead and cut, or go ahead and sew them over there. So I'm just gonna go ahead and keep on cutting. Have all our half square triangles cut. Now the only thing I didn't mention about this method is if you cut it this way, you need to cut 48 pairs because you're not getting 2 per unit. If you follow the traditional instructions, we tell you to cut 24 squares because you get 2 half square triangles per square. So that is one of the other things you have to think about, is it's actually a little less fabric. You just have to remember to cut as many units as you're making versus only half of many as you're making. That is how to cut these using this ruler versus doing the traditional method, which is written in the pattern. Alright, so we have all our half square triangles cut, and then I went ahead and sewed them, and they just went through like that. And then we're ready to press. Now these, I'm pressing these towards the dark. I'm using the edge of my iron, and I'm just pressing into the seam. I'm not pressing the whole, I'm not going all the way out to the edge. And that's all you need to do to press these. You will need to make 48 of these, and these are going to become our block corners. And then we have our centers already cut, so those go in the center. Then we move on to the template pieces that we had sewn. And so we have template 1, template 2, and template 3. And you go ahead and you place template, you can do template 1 first or 3, it doesn't matter. But you just align the top notch, and then the new rulers have a bottom notch as well. I cut this with the older ruler so it doesn't have it. So you'd have 2 notches to measure. And the templates, you would just align it like that. And then you just start at the top and you sew your 1/4 inch seam, which is here. Okay, and then to press that, again, take the side of your iron and just press into the seam. You don't want to go out to the edges because you can actually stretch and distort your triangles. Now we're going to put the second template on. Again, aligning the top and the bottom. And then you're going to rotate that to sew it through your machine this way. And then we're going to go ahead and press that out. I find these units work much better if you press out to the background. I know it's like, You know, people say press to the dark, but in this case with this shape, it's always better just to press it out versus in. It gives you less bulk at the top, everything kind of lays flatter. So you're gonna make those. You're gonna make 48 black ones and 48 gray ones. And then we're going to put 2 more of these units on the bottom. And I'm going to walk you through that part right now. So let's put this aside, this aside. So now you have these. You'll have 48 with black and 48 with gray. And then once you have those, the first thing you do is you're going to look at the pictures here and decide, there's that unit, this unit, this unit, and this unit. So we have 4 units, and the red starts on the bottom of both of these and the gray starts on the bottom of both of these, but they start on opposite sides. So you need to make 24 that look like this, 24 like this, 24 like this, and 24 like this. So the first thing you need to do is take your pile of 48 units, these guys, and divide them in half. Don't do what I did, which is you cut all of them thinking they go the same way, because half go one way and half go the mirror way. So for that, this is where we're headed. We're going to make 24 of those and 24 of those. So to do that, the first thing we need to do is position the gray. I'm going to put it this way. Position the gray unit 1 on. Is it unit 1? Hang on a minute. Yes, unit 1. These are batiks, so there's no right or wrong side. But if you have a fabric that's right or wrong, you want to make sure you grab the right unit. So that's going to go like that. And then we're going to trim, and then you're going to put this one on. So I'm going to show you how to position that and mark it correctly. And this is in the pattern. So you're going to take a ruler, following the top piece, in this case my white piece. I put this 1 7/8 inch line on the bottom of this white rectangle, or right triangle. And I make a little mark right on the edge. And then on this bottom edge, starting at the corner of the white piece, I'm going to mark a 1/2 inch in. So I have a dot here and a dot here. Then I take my ruler and I align those 2 dots. And I'm going to draw with 2 pens, because I need something to show on the white and something to show on the black. So now I have my line, and I take my gray piece and I'm going to align the edge of the gray triangle with the drawn line, just like that. And I'm going to sew like this, and just sew a 1/4 inch right here. And you can flip it out to make sure that it's aligning properly. If it's not, double check your measurements, that you have a 1/2 inch point and a 1 7/8 inch point, and that you've drawn that line. So once that flips out, you can flip it back. You need to trim the excess fabric from behind so your block doesn't get too bulky. So there's that. Let's go ahead and press this. Again, just the edge, you don't want to go, or just the seam, you don't want to go all the way out. Now we need to position the red piece. We're going to do the exact same thing, but on the opposite side. So again, at the bottom, 7/8, 1 7/8, make a mark. Over here, 1/2 inch in from the corner, make a mark. Align those 2 marks. Draw your line. And then you take your red piece. This is a template 3. And you align that. Now this one has a notch on the end, so you can just align the notch with the side and then the edge along your drawn line. We're going to go ahead and sew that. So now we've sewn that one. Flip this one up. You see it is perfect. You can go ahead and press it. And then you can flip it down, trim your excess away from the back so you don't have bulk in the seam. And there we go. There is that unit. So the other thing I would recommend is measuring it and squaring up if needed. You want to have that white where the black of the triangle meets the white 1/4 inch away, which it does. And what's going to end up being trimmed most likely are these 2 additional triangles. You need it to measure 4 1/4. Okay, and I recommend for trimming getting a turntable. Now this is the Martelli turntable. It comes with a cutting mat and a pressing mat, and you can replace the pieces as they wear out. I just had a class and one of the students, she showed us she used her little square cutting mat and a regular cheapo Lazy Susan. I really like this because it doesn't go anywhere and it's very stable, but there are ways to make turntables. You can just check those out or get yourself a Martelli. I'll put the link below. This is on Amazon. So I've already trimmed that side. So this is why you have the turntable. You just turn it around and then measure 4 1/4 in. You see we're not really trimming very much, but just squaring them up a little bit in this case will make it easier to sew the blocks together. Alright, so we've got all our units made. So they look like this. This is for block 2. So you have 24 left ones, 24 right ones. Same thing for the block 1. These are already sewn together. Left and right, 24 and 24. So once, oh wait, that's the same one. This is for block 1, 24 and 24. So 24, 24, 24, 24. Now obviously we need to sew these 2 together to create our side borders to go around our center block, and I want to cover that here. So what you do is you're making sure that the entire diamond is being sewn together, not the little diamond, which gives you a totally different block. So you can use it for something else. But for this one, once you've sewn them and trimmed them, the point that we are trying to match up is this right here. So when you align these 2, you want to align that spot first. Then worry about these 2 being matched. I went ahead and I was being efficient and quick, so I did not mark, measure, and draw a line like I showed you guys. I actually marked, measured, and cut them. And I wouldn't recommend that because each of them is a little bit off, because when you stack and cut, they slift and shift on you. So if you were to have cut them like I did, you still want to mark and match those 2 points. Let's grab some pins here. And you're going to want to put a pin in there because that's what you want to join. Then you can pin the top here by sticking a pin through where the 2 seams meet, about 1/4 inch from the top. Stick it through the top on the second piece, and then I squeeze them together and I stick the pin in. Now what that's doing is aligning these 2 points, but you can see that they're not quite matched up edge to edge. As you quilt more and more and more, you're going to realize that there are ways to fudge things when they don't align. And in this point, by aligning those 2 important points, this is maybe 1/8 of an inch off, not even. It's in the seam allowance. I'm not going to worry about it. This is happening because I cut these and didn't mark them. So again, heed my warning, just draw the line and sew them is much more accurate than just whacking it off and lining it up. So there we go. We've got those 2 pieces aligned, and then we're going to sew our seam. And that gives us our side units. Okay? And you can see how accurate that is. This is a little bit off. Again, I'm not going to worry about that as much as this because this is going to show more than that. That is in my seam allowance. I did square all of my blocks up to 4 1/4. But again, because I was doing a shortcut, my pieces are not quite as accurate as you would like them to be. And I'm showing you this just so you understand there are shortcuts, but there's always, you know, a chance that it's not as accurate. Now this one is a little bit off. You can see it here. There we go. It's up to you whether you want to take that out or not. Now, right now, that looks glaring. It's huge to me. It's like, oh, I gotta fix this. But you gotta remember, this is going into a huge quilt. It is then going to be quilted. At some point, it's going to be washed. No one is going to see that. I wouldn't go much more than that. But you don't always have to have every point absolutely perfect and still have a beautiful quilt. So when you have things like this, it is totally up to you whether you fix it or not. Don't let people tell you it has to be perfect or the quilt won't be right. Because in this case, that it's going to be so minor in the bigger quilt. So you can choose to leave it or not. No judgment whether you rip it out or not. And if you're really fighting with them matching, switch it with another square. Just take this square and put it here. It might match better. For the most part, though, even though I cut them, you can see they came out 99% accurate. That's why if one is a little off, I may fix it just so that they all are accurate. But see, like this one's a little bit off as well. And until I hold it up to the camera, you don't really see it. Down here, it looks fine. So it's up to you about mistakes. But I want to show you how we're going to press these. Now, right now, if you were to press, you could press this to one side, and you're going to have a lot of bulk. So you could press this, and that is acceptable. That is not too much bulk to have in your quilt. Recently, though, I've been on a campaign to try to reduce the bulk in my seams, because then when you quilt it, it looks, it's easier to quilt because you don't have bulky points. But looking at this, this really isn't that bad. So you could just press this with the edge of your iron to one side, but you could also press them open, and to do that I use a strip stick. We have the 9-inch and the 18-inch available, and the 9-inch is great for travel. You just lay it on the stick. I use a purple thing. I press the seam open a little with my finger, and then I use the nose of my iron into the seam. Now when I go to press this, it's nice and flat, and there's a lot less bulk right here because it's even than if you press it to one side. So that's how you use the little guy. You usually get one at a time out. The big guy, so I have this for my travel bag. The big guy works great because you can lay up multiple units and press them all at once. And obviously you'd be on a bigger pressing mat. Mine's just sort of teeter-tottering here. So I go through and I just set them up, press them with my finger just to get them started, and then I take the iron and I can press 3 at a time, or sometimes 4 depending on the size. So once you've pressed them all, I do give them a second press from the front just to make sure I didn't roll any fabric into the seam. So I'm going to go ahead and get all of these pressed, but in the meantime, let me show you how we're going to do our blocks. So now we have our rows sewn together here. So I'm going to show you how I pressed them. These I pressed out to the half square triangles. These I pressed in towards the center. Same thing here, out towards the half square triangles. Then when you go to put this together, this seam here will nest for you, and you could put a pin in here and a pin in here, and those are the only 2 seams you need to match on the block. So if you pin there and there and sew it, and then repeat down here, then once you have your block sewn, here it is sewn, we need to press these long seams. And I recommend, because there are so many bulky points here, I recommend pressing it open. And I would, this is where the long strip stick comes in handy, because you just lay that underneath. Just like we did the short ones, you just pop this seam open, use the nose of your iron, and press it. And that will make those intersecting points much flatter and less bulky. If you press it to one side and you hit those seam intersections quilting, it could cause your needle to jump because it's pretty thick. You've got 1, 2, 3, 4 layers of fabric if you press it to one side. Alright. So again, just press it like that, slide it down, press the other one, and then once you've done it from this side, always turn it over and press it from the other side just to make sure you didn't roll any fabric in the seam. That can happen when you press from the back, whether you're doing an open seam or a regular seam. And you'll notice in this block I did some open and some closed. In general, a closed seam is much stronger than an open seam. I have no problem mixing them within a block as needed versus saying you always press open or you always press close, because it's inside your quilt. And again, anytime you can press a seam closed, it's better. It's a little bit stronger. But you have to counter bulk as well, and those work better with open seams. So there we go. So there is the block all pressed. So next step is to sew these into rows for the quilt top. And traditionally when we do a quilt, sew our quilt tops together, hang on, let me find a picture here, we sew them into rows. I find it quicker and easier to actually sew them into columns when it's not going to affect the overall layout of the design. So I will sew all 4 of these together, these 4 together, these 4 together, and then I only have to sew 3 columns together to create the quilt top. Probably doesn't make it go any faster, it's probably psychological, but that's how I do the quilt top. So we're going to go ahead and sew the rows together. In between these seams, in between the blocks, I will press those seams open as well, because again you have these bulky points. So those will all get pressed open, which means then when you sew your columns together you need to press those open. So in this case, once you start pressing these open, it's kind of like Pandora's box. You need to press your whole quilt top when you put the blocks together open. And then we'll go ahead and add our borders. And the borders, I'm going to just press out. Press out to the blue, out to the black, out to the blue. Out, out, out. And that way we'll have the finished quilt tops, and I will show it to you here at the end. So here is our Honor and Pride back from Monica. She's quilted all over stars and swirls. And she did a contrasting navy thread so it pops off the quilt. Let me move in here so you can get a better look at the quilting. So you can see she did swirls all over. So I hope you've enjoyed this video as we show you how to put these blocks together, and talked about the fabrics in the quilt and showed you how to use the 2 peaks in 1 ruler. If you have enjoyed the video, make sure you like and subscribe, and I thank you for watching.